Hi, this is Matt. Today I want to talk to you about the difference between social justice and biblical justice. This is the second part of a two-part series on social justice. If you haven't watched the first part, go to Nehemiah Reset's website at nehemiahreset.org or at our Rumble.com account to watch part 1. This is reminiscent of the Marxist maxim, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Writing for the Journal of Business Ethics, William E. Murnion gives a straightforward assessment of the bishop's text. The conception of justice it espouses is socialist, and communist at that. Murnion conceded that the bishops were not crypto-communists, just that their conception of social justice is indeed identical with the communist principle of justice, even though the bishops have arrived at it from a route entirely opposed to Marx's. Finally, from the Catholic perspective, Pope Benedict XVI amply demonstrated his affinity to social justice through his encyclical Caritas in Veritate. Here, social justice is recognized as an issue of prime economic and political importance, one that goes beyond the free market approach. According to this encyclical, economic redistribution is justice. The Pope also recommended that the United Nations be reformed, along with the global economy, so that a true world political authority would emerge, with teeth. Why? 2. Seek to establish the common good. Although some older papal teachings uphold private property and reject Marxist socialism, such as Pope Leo XIII in Rerum Novarum, the Roman Catholic hierarchy over the past 100+ years has increasingly bridged social justice with economic and political collectivism. In this sense, the Holy See has become a cheerleading squad for the United Nations system of socialist management. As Professor Baum explains in his book, The Coming Century of Communism, slowly, step by step, stage by stage, the Catholic Church-state champions the UN's agenda for a new international economic order. Pope Francis, the current pope, openly embraces social justice concepts and has frequently called for global wealth redistribution for the common good. He supports the UN's efforts and agendas to control wealth and its redistribution, and in a 2020 encyclical, Fratelli Tutti, he exuded socialism, and at times bordering communism, suggesting that capitalism is ineffective and criticized individualism in favor of its opposite, collectivism. Parallel to the modern Catholic version of social justice is Año historical movement giving active energy to the term. And if the papal idea of social justice found itself on the slippery slope to collectivism, this parallel movement intentionally aimed for the bottom of the hill. For generations there has been an activist side to the idea of wealth redistribution. This popular front, with a web of splinter groups, organizations, and fellow travelers, used social justice as the rallying cry for cultural transformation. In fact, this movement is very much alive today and continues to use the term as an effective banner. These social justice flag wavers have been the most vocal preachers of collectivism, the followers of Karl Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, Castro, and dozens of other socialist and communist leaders. Communists and social radicals have been, hands down, the winners when it comes to employing this term. The Socialist International has always used it, as has Trotskyite organizations, red factions, and a multitude of socialist political parties. The idea of social justice within a more political context goes back a long way. In 1848, the Society of Fraternal Democrats, an international body that rubbed shoulders with Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, published a veiled threat against the British system when they said, "Let the privileged classes renounce their unjust usurpations and establish political equality and social justice, and England will have nothing to fear against a world in arms." Under communism, wealth redistribution was to be used for social ends. In this structure, private property for personal gain was viewed as the cornerstone of the class system and was seen as the cause of social injustice and strife. Wealth redistribution, therefore, was aimed at producing a society where all people were economically equal. Hence, the abolition of bourgeois property, that of the capitalist class, was the key component of communism. Once the proletariat, working class, had attained political power, a more just social system. The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest, by degrees, all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize all instruments of production in the hands of the state, i.e., of the proletariat organized as the ruling class, and to increase the total of productive forces as rapidly as possible. Of course, in the beginning, this cannot be effected except by means of despotic inroads on the rights of property. This concept of social justice, the raising of an oppressed class through the degradation of another class, is a reactionary process based on the arousing of envy. At this base level, and in other respects, communism is directly linked to the French Revolution, an event that had sparked worldwide revolutionary fervor, and one whose shots are still echoing today. Austrian philosopher and defender of freedom, Erich von Kuehnelt-Leddihn, provides historical context when he said, "How many people were murdered or killed in battle because of the ideas of the French Revolution? In their various stages, guises, and evolutionary forms, because of the ideas of equality, ethnic or racist identity, a classless society, a world safe for democracy, a racially pure people, true social justice achieved by social engineering." Weaving the thread of envy and social change, Kuehnelt-Leddihn reminds us when he wrote, "In the last 200 years the exploitation of envy, its mobilization among the masses, coupled with the denigration of individuals, but more frequently of classes, races, nations or religious communities has been the very key to political success. All leftist isms harp on this theme, i.e., on the privilege of groups, minority groups, to be sure, who are objects of envy and at the same time subjects of intellectual moral inferiorities. They have no right to their exalted positions. They ought to conform to the rest, become identical with the people, renounce their privileges, conform. If they speak another language, they ought to drop it and talk the lingo of the majority. If they are wealthy, their riches should be taxed away or confiscated." This method of arousing envy, often disguised as virtue, "We're doing this for the poor and oppressed," is built upon a sense of moral superiority and indignation, which then ferments into loathing and social action. At this point, the emotion of the ideal becomes the driver of transformation. Perched on this self-constructed high point, we quickly sanction socialism, the theft of all for the greater good. Are not content by the slowness of socialism, communism is pursued through revolution, the gutting of one class for the greater good. Either way, collectivism is instituted, which is the empowerment of those who claim to guide the general good. In all of this, they say, democracy takes on a purification role, expressed as mob rule. Whoever controls the biggest mob through the emotion of the ideal is the one who rules. Social change then occurs either through the ballot box or the barrel of a gun. It doesn't matter. The mob has spoken, equality will be enforced, and we can bask in the warm herd feeling of brotherhood. Literary critic and former Marxist, Herbert Reed, well understood these connections when he stated, "Communism is an extreme form of democracy, and it is totalitarian. But equally the totalitarian state in the form of fascism is an extreme form of democracy. All forms of socialism, whether state socialism of the Russian kind, or national socialism of the German kind, or democratic socialism of the British kind, are professedly democratic, that is to say, they all obtain popular assent by the manipulation of mass psychology. Over the years, communist and socialist leaders have rallied the masses with the message of inequality, oppression, and the social justice solution. Economic equality, which, they say, will come about and bring the end of inequalities and establish real social justice. In the current climate of the 2020s, critical race theory has been resurrected and is being introduced to millions, including school children, to help bring about the socialist, Marxist plan for Western society. In 1898, Eugene V. Debs, later dubbed America's greatest Marxist, equated a collective society, industrial freedom, and social justice. A few years later, during World War I, he noted that permanent peace based on social justice wouldn't occur until national industrial despotism was replaced by international industrial democracy. Economic profit was anathema to peace, and the ending of war could only come with the ending of profit and plunder among nations. A new order was needed where one class was striped and replaced by a more progressive and global apparatus. Lenin and his gang came to power with an ambitious program of measures designed to ensure social justice and improve the lot of the poor. Maxim Gorky, a friend of Lenin, couches this in glowing words of endearment when he said, "The heroic deeds which Lenin achieved are surrounded by no glittering halo." His was that heroism which Russia knows well, the unassuming, austere life of self-sacrifice of the true Russian revolutionary intellectual who, in his unshakable belief in the possibility of social justice on earth, renounces all the pleasures of life in order to toil for the happiness of mankind. The result was disastrous. Mervyn Matthews tells us, the efforts to banish capitalist exploitation had all but destroyed the wealthier classes without benefiting more than a tiny proportion of the poor. But it did benefit Lenin and company. Never mind the mountain of corpses, progress always comes with a price. By 1922, the Russian Revolution had cost the lives of 6 to 10 million. Decades later in the Americas, Castro summed up the Cuban Revolution as an aspiration for social justice. Che Guevara couched his bloody revolution as an armed struggle for freedom of rights and social justice. This crude theme is common to all leftist uprisings because it rests in the heart of all leftist ideologies. Socialist author Celia Hart put it this way, with the exploiting classes there will never be social justice. Without social justice there will never be peace. Never before has the world needed, as now, to remember November 7, the anniversary of the October Revolution. Never before must we understand that the banner of Bolshevism never died. And let us shout to our enemies, regardless of whether they call us terrorists, that we will not fight for the imperialist war, or for the miserable peace of injustices. We will fight together for the socialist revolution in permanent combat. Workers of the world, unite. It's a radical call. Today we see social justice linked to a myriad of radical movements, including environmentalism. Nice-sounding, morally high terms arise from this Marxist green marriage: eco-justice, green justice, and climate justice. How does this look? In 1990, the Manitoba government, in partnership with UNESCO, convened the prestigious World Environment, Energy and Economic Conference. The theme was provocative: Sustainable Development Strategies and the New World Order. A report was released with the findings, titled Sustainable Development for a New World Agenda. Chapter 2, Towards a Global Green Constitution, fleshed out a section with the subtitle, Social Justice. Population Control, Green Energy Regulations, and Accounting Systems that suggested an official global policy of one child per family, and the principle of global economic equality, would be central to the green government, the text reported. Human rights would also be at the forefront. Intolerable attitudes wouldn't be tolerated, all in the name of protecting the oppressed. Now, real oppression is evil. Nobody in his or her right mind wants oppression to occur or flourish. But social justice a la collectivism is the most dangerous form of oppression imaginable. Moreover, the truly downtrodden, like the peasants of the old Soviet Union, rarely have their load lightened under social justice. Instead, with the destruction of the creative capital inherent in a free market, the plight of the poor continues. In fact, no wonder F. A. Hayek called Marxist-based social justice a pseudo-ethics, one that fails every test which a system of moral rules must satisfy in order to secure a peace and voluntary cooperation of free men. We often hear the quote, "My church has a social justice mandate. This is something I support." Sounds nice, but can you tell me what you mean? The usual response I get, thankfully, centers on feeding the poor, helping at a homeless shelter or safe house, assisting the elderly, working with troubled teens, or supporting an orphanage. Sorry, that's not social justice. The dominant social justice concept for the past 150 years has been centered on the sliding slope of papal-advocated wealth redistribution, alongside a Marxist version of collectivism. Feeding the poor and assisting the helpless, from a Christian perspective, isn't social justice, it's biblical compassion, a generous act of love. Such acts of compassion engage individual lives and are based on the Christian call of loving others more than self. This is the heart of compassion. An individual sees a need and operating out of love, reaches to meet that need. Churches too are to function in a similar manner. A need is evident, and moved by compassion, the congregation works to solve the dilemma. Coercion never enters the picture, nor does a political agenda emerge, nor is a call for economic equality heard. The biblical parable of the Good Samaritan demonstrates true compassion, see Luke 10. A Jewish man has been beaten, robbed, and left to die on the road. Various people pass him by, including the religiously pious. However, a Samaritan traveler sees the individual, and although the Samaritan is culturally alienated from the Jewish man, he recognizes the desperation and individually takes action, dressing his wounds and providing a place of rest and refuge. And the Samaritan pays for it himself without demanding remuneration or compensation, either from the victim, his family, or community, or from the government or ruling class. However, if the Samaritan were a supporter of the dominant theme in social justice, he would have acted with a different motive for different ends. The Samaritan would have used the occasion to lobby for social transformation. They might quote one of three reasons for the problem. First, the robbers were really victims of an unjust economic system and had acted in response to the oppression of the capital class. Second, in order to bring justice to this oppressed class and to steer them back to a caring community, equitable wealth redistribution should take place. And third, who will pay the victims' medical bills? The community or the rich? In the social justice framework, another agenda lurks behind the tragedy. A political and economic cause is piggybacked and leveraged, the cause of economic equality through wealth redistribution. This isn't about truly helping the victim, it's about using the victim. Biblical justice, on the other hand, never seeks to dismantle class structures. Evil actions are condemned, but this isn't specific to a particular social stratum. Consider the words of Leviticus 19:15, "Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect, or be partial to, the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty. But in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor." In other words, according to the Bible, true justice means we do not show partially to someone based on whether he or she is poor or rich, but rather true justice is based on the standards of righteousness that God has put forth in His Word. God made us different. We are unequal in aptitude, talent, skill, work ethic, priorities, etc. Inevitably, these differences result in some individuals producing and earning far more wealth than others. To the extent that those in the social justice crowd obsess about eliminating economic inequality, they are at war with the nature of the Creator's creation. The Bible doesn't condemn economic inequality. Jesus, Himself, didn't condemn economic inequality. Yes, He repeatedly warned about the snares of material wealth and especially the love of money. He exploded the comfortable conventionality of the Pharisaical tendency to regard prosperity as a badge of honor and superiority. He commanded compassion toward the poor and suffering. But He also told His disciples, "You have the poor always with you." See Matthew 26-11, and in the parable of the talents see Matthew 25 verses 24-30. He condemned the failure to productively use one's God-given talents, whether many or few, exceptional or ordinary, by having a lord take money from the one who had the least and give it to him who had the most, thereby increasing economic inequality. The Lord's mission was to redeem us from sin, not to redistribute our property or impose economic equality on us. Jesus explicitly declined to undermine property rights or preach Economic Equality Act when He told the man who wanted Jesus to tell his brother to share an inheritance with him, "Man, who made me a judge or divider over you?" As we see in Luke 12:14. I must confess that it's easy to fall into the social justice way of thinking. My childhood rant over what I perceived to be injustices showed me, in retrospect, the power of an emotional ideal. Yet, if by some twist I had followed up on my self-righteous emotional outburst and had become a social justice advocate in the true sense of the phrase, a sad irony would have occurred. In the name of justice, I would have promoted socially sanctioned theft, all for one collective, and theft for all. Let us act with compassion, be charitable, and pursue true justice. Let us be wise in our actions, clear in our language, and honest in our motives. Let us remember Micah 6-8, which states, He hath showed thee, O man, what is good and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Thank you for taking time today to talk about the issue of social justice versus biblical justice. Remember, if we pursue social justice, we will go down the road to communism, which is where we are headed today. Get on board with biblical justice. Treat people like God wants us to treat them. Let the parable of the Good Samaritan be our guide. Treat people with compassion, but also realize sometimes biblical justice means that we need to have tough love. I hope you enjoyed this video today. This video is the second in a two-part series on social justice. If you want to see the first part or more videos on today's cultural issues, go to the Nehemiah Reset website at nehemiahreset.org or our rumble.com channel. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
Thank you for watching this video from Nehemiah Reset. We hope you found it informative and helpful. Our mission is to assist Christians in developing a biblical worldview as it pertains to relevant cultural issues. We seek to inform Christ's followers, equip them, and mobilize them into action to vote for their biblical values and to actively engage the culture. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our Rumble, YouTube and Facebook channels. You can also visit our website at nehemiahreset.org to learn more about our vision, our resources, and our upcoming events. Thank you for your support and God bless you.